code, I've got the password to unlock your heart. Will you play a game? I promise not to cheat. Nintendo or Atari, boy, I think you're really sweet. I'm a super scoring girl with glitches, graphics on my mind. Like a Contra code, I'm full of life but never out of time. We can play together, you be playing one, I don't mind two, as long as it's a good controller and I get to sit with you.
In my last video, I talked about this abundance of right angles, the Entex Selector game, the second handheld console to accept interchangeable cartridges. This unit is incredibly rare and difficult to get hold of, so much so that I had to track down a unit to borrow. But Entex's next console was far rarer.
I'm talking about the Entex Adventure Vision. This thing is a bizarre but interesting gaming item with limited success, a limited run, and it would seem limited distribution. It's incredibly uncommon and hard to get hold of.
And I'm lucky enough to be borrowing one. Look at it, it's one of the world's rarest consoles. Look at me holding it. Look at me stroking it. This is all I've set up my channel for, so I guess I don't really need to keep going now. Alright guys, you can all leave, we're done here. Oh yeah, I forgot I do this crap by myself.
Alright, this console is the Entex Adventure Vision, and oh boy, this thing is amazing. I mean, as I'm gonna show, it's utter rubbish, but it's impressive. Entex were being very innovative here, and frankly, their development department was clearly on point because the industry had plenty of these lovely tabletop games, but none that would accept interchangeable cartridges. And after their innovative two-player handheld with the Entex Selector game, these guys and gals were on a roll.
Now, like the Entex Selector game, I'm unsure as to whether this was released with anything other than what this one that I've got here was released with. It's such a rare system that I wasn't able to find any other examples of another box design. Well, this one comes packaged with the game Defender, and unlike Entex's Selector game attempt with Pac-Man, this was actually officially licensed.
Now, one of the big things this box totes is not needing a TV. This is a tabletop game design, which, like I said, was already a thing, so it's a bit of an odd thing to say unless they were trying to present this thing as being a direct alternative to the Atari 2600 or the ColecoVision, both of which were still very new to the scene. The Atari 2600 being released in 1977, and this hench bad lad was released in 1982, which incidentally is when the ColecoVision was released. Interestingly, while Entex never made a true home console like the Atari 2600, they did make these plug-in TV games, but they were just one game per unit. I was able to find evidence for 3 versions: a Space Battle, which was pretty much Space Invaders, Space Force, which was pretty much asteroids, and a Turtles game. They appear to have been released in 1982, if they were released at all, because these things are rare as heck, but apparently they do exist somewhere. Anyway, back to the Adventure Vision. Let's take a look at some of the blurb on this box. The most realistic display system since television.
Wow, that's a bold statement. Are you saying it's better than TV as a whole? I mean, I know at the time that TV wasn't exactly the best, but that's pretty impressive.
A big screen, real sound, electronic cartridge game system that looks and plays like a TV cartridge system, but requires no television.
Oh, you mean it's more realistic than a TV console system? No, slightly misleading, but okay.
Authentic gameplay, full fidelity, speaker sound.
Why is the real in real sound in quotation marks? That doesn't bode well.
Oh, the most realistic display system since TV. Again.
I mean, the better than TV thing is mentioned about 100 million times on the box.
Seriously, on every side of the box it's going on about how it's the most realistic display since the TV. This is really hyping itself up. The Atari 2600 isn't realistic, but it looks awesome. So this thing is going to be better? Oh boy! Well, I should probably note here that at the time, in 1982, TVs were still very expensive. Many households would rent a TV because of this, so to be fair, the no TV needed angle could have been a great one to have. This box also has a couple of stickers on it, added at some point after production instead of remaking the boxes. Now, because this thing isn't mine, I'm not about to even think of touching these stickers, but I can't find any pictures of the box without these stickers online, so I can only speculate as to what's behind them. Now, on the Entex Selector game, these exact same black stickers were used to cover cover up the fact that Entex had made and distributed a Pac-Man game without the license. Now, I saw maybe one photo on the internet that had just the black sticker in the middle of this space, and here is written not included. There's a white sticker on the back here too, which again I didn't touch, but shining a bright light on it I can see that it says built-in adapter jack accepts the Entex AC adapter not included. I have no idea why this in particular might have been blanked out on this box, as the adapter jack is pointed out on the diagram.
So I guess I would say that behind this black strip it says something like AC adapter not included. Why would they need to blank that out? By all accounts, Entex only supplied the AC adapter by mail order anyway, same as with the Selector game.
Looking in the box, there's plenty of space for an adapter to go if they decided to chuck it into the sale package, maybe to boost sales, but this one doesn't have an adapter. It also came rather randomly with a page of instructions apparently written on a typewriter, although the current owner is unsure whether this was something that the previous owner had rustled up. Could have been something chucked in lazily for French and German distribution, but I couldn't find any evidence that it was ever distributed there. Here's the price list. It says a defective one sent back to Entex for repair will set you back $40, $105 in modern money or about 80 quid. But from internet lurking, I've ascertained that the original retail price of the unit with the game was between $70 and $80, so at the high end that would work out to be about $206 or 155 quid in modern money. And like I said, it meaning that your parents wouldn't have to shell out for another TV for you to play on makes it seem even more appealing. Now, although it might look like it weighs a fair bit, it's actually quite light. That is, without the D batteries it would need to run without the power supply. I'm using a power supply because I'll be damned if I'm going to go rummaging around Pound Shop for some damn D batteries. I've never had to use them before in real life aside from throwing them at people who've angered me, like more popular YouTubers.
Oh, come on! Come on! Ah!
Look at this thing! It's like an adorable, more hench version of tabletop arcade games. It's so small.
Take a look at these grooves on the top. There is speculation online that these slots were made so that you'd be able to fit your cartridges in them. But the fact that there's only 4 slots suggests Entex never expected to release more than the initial 4 games that accompanied its launch.
Wow, defeatist.
Although it's not like the cartridge actually fits in there perfectly, so maybe that wasn't their intention. Also, there's this expansion port hidden away. I have no clue what this might have been planned for. It's certainly not for the Selector game cartridges. It actually says accessory port on it, but I could find no info anywhere regarding what those accessories might be. Little bizarre that they didn't seem to plan any more games, but apparently did leave the door open for some expansion gubbins. The games clip onto the front of the console here. They're a pain to take off once they're on though, since they're so stumpy. Look at how cute and little this cartridge is. It looks a little bit like a block of chocolate off a chocolate bar.
Right, well, this thing has got 2 sets of buttons, so I guess it's supposed to be a 2-player machine, right? Play it with me. No, that's too difficult.
What's one of the best things about playing arcade cabinets at the arcade? Being able to play 2-player games, of course, and since Entex's previous electronic devices were all about the 2-player, it's not surprising to see 2 sets of buttons on this thing.
Means you'd have to get really intimate over the controls though.
That's the point actually, although it does appear to have 2 players in mind, there's only the 1 joystick, so how is that going to work? Well anyway, let's get playing. The only game I have here is the officially licensed Defender of Williams Electronics. This is the one that came packaged in with the unit.
Oh, my eyes!
I can only capture this by putting my camera right up next to the screen, so please forgive the roughness of these shots. The play screen is flickery as all heck. It also seems to be sort of vibrating. When viewing it, the section of the screen with the actual gameplay on is over to the right rather than being in the middle, and only a very small amount of this screen is actually being used.
This isn't the best thing since TV. I've been looking at it for about 2 minutes now and I'm genuinely starting to feel kind of queasy.
Making quite a racket too, it sounds like the computer fan on a struggling laptop.
There's a perfectly good reason for this. The Adventure Vision had a very innovative way of showing you the gameplay.
Let's break it down here. What you have here on the left is a single strip of LED lights. Just off centre of the unit is a multi-sided mirror on a motor that spins around super fast. The mirror is essentially your actual play screen, and this great big plastic screen that's taking up the front of the console is just for show.
That one single strip of LEDs is creating the entire screen, where one LED is one of those red dots. But how is it able to sculpt a whole play area?
Hello there! So what we have with the screen on this device is rather simple. Basically we've got a row of LEDs, single row, projects onto a mirror which spins very fast with different angles on it, and what happens is the LEDs, they cast an image, a line at a time, onto this mirror. Different angles on the mirror bounce to different points on the screen to create an illusion of a solid screen. Marvellous, isn't it? Bloody marvellous!
Defender was released in the arcades in 1981, so it was still popular when this port was made. There's no wonder it was chosen as the pack-in. Now obviously it was kind of expected for it to look nowhere near as nice as the arcade original, but this isn't actually a bad port, I mean the bad screen aside.
Oh, this spinning screen is really clever, but it's not nice to play on. And the fact that it isn't even at the centre of the screen is really bugging me too. Plus, when you're playing it, you have to sit at a really odd angle.
This is you. With the joystick, it's quite nice to control, although moving left to right is a bit sticky. You've got landers, mutants, pods, swarmers and bombers after you. To be fair, that's some pretty impressive use of the very restrictive technology here. In Defender, you need to stop landers clearing off with humans. This gets difficult because it's not easy to see on this which is a human and which is an enemy. Once the landers take off with a human, it's especially hard to see. For me, one of the absolute best things about the original Williams arcade games was the sound effects. Well, this game does at least try to emulate those gorgeous noises of Defender on the arcade.
Oh, damn, they're sexy.
I have to admit, although obviously it's nowhere near as good, for what it is, the Adventurevision has captured that lovely crunchy sound of the arcade. Whoa, that hyperspace sound.
But where's the player 2 option?
It actually says on the front of the instruction book where it tells you what the buttons do, that this is the 2-player control, but nowhere in the book does it say anything about a 2-player mode. Unlike the Selector game, there's no switch to change it to 2-player. I thought maybe it meant there's an alternate player option, but that doesn't seem to be the case either. You don't get a title screen or anything with this.
Well, there's got to be at least one 2-player game. Why would they design it like this if there wasn't?
Now the separate cartridges for the Adventurevision are just as rare as the unit, so I don't have access to them, and I don't think I ever will. So I'm going to start using this emulator. Here it is playing Defender. If you just try to imagine this being flickery as all hell like I showed you before, you might be able to get an idea of what I'm working with here. So next up, let's look at Super Cobra, officially licensed from Konami. The original is a pretty sweet game, and I guess it's not an especially bad port for what it is. The sound effects are really nice, but I bet with this screen flickering like mad, it would have been incredibly difficult just to see the helicopter. You've really got to use your imagination with a game with graphics like this. Turtles is another officially licensed game, and it's very cute. If you're not familiar with it, you're a little turtle trying to find his way home. I have no clue what these things are supposed to be. It says on the box that they are menacing beetles. I suppose they do kind of look like beetles, but if they're beetles, I don't know if this is a turtle. It's actually an alright game. Again, very simple, and of course no comparison to the original arcade version. The music does get very annoying. But I suppose when you think about it, it was kind of impressive that it was able to be used at all. And here's the final game, Space Force. This one is 2-player, but it's alternate play, so you don't need to use the other buttons at all. Why is this designed like this? Space Force is basically asteroids, and it's another okay enough port. Again, I wouldn't be able to play it for ages on the actual machine, but this is already a great game anyway, so it's probably a good game to have for the system. And that's it! That's all the games that were ever made for the Adventurevision. I found in a couple of adverts for it that there were more under development, but what they might have been, and whether that was true at all, is anyone's guess.
Well, apart from the fact that this thing had a pretty bad looking display and that the price point was a little bit higher than it should have been, its key competitor was the Vectrix.
Yep, this gorgeous thing was released in the same year, and despite it being much heavier, it's very much a portable unit with its own screen. Its games look much nicer, and the game library, while small, was still much bigger. Only a year after its release, the AdventureVision bit the dust, and really, when you put the two systems beside each other, it's not hard to see why, even with the differing price points. Ugh, now compared to the Vectrix, the AdventureVision just seems kind of useless. Unless...
Oh! What the
You've got to admire the way that the games are delivered on the AdventureVision, but unfortunately the end result is really flickery games that are just really hard to see. And honestly, after playing it for about 10 minutes, I really do feel quite unwell. On top of that, there's the really odd choice of button layout, buttons that you don't even use, and the fact that you need to sort of crane your neck over when you use it.
But you know what? This thing is incredibly rare and worth a lot of money to a collector. So while I think the actual console is kind of rubbish, I'm very glad to have been able to play one, and thank you Quang for letting me borrow it.
Well, there we go. That's the Entex AdventureVision. What a bizarre but interesting little console. And if I'm brutal and using the benefit of foresight, it's kind of crap. But you know what? It's just odd and innovative enough to be a very interesting piece of gaming history. And I don't think it should be forgotten.
Also, it's worth like $2,000, so, you know, there's that. Retro game collectors are crazy.
Oh, God! Oh!